evening, everyone. Next item is roll call. Jacob.
Councillor Eastman.
Here.
Councillor Morrison.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Bissonnette.
Here.
Mayor Stewart's absent. Councillor Ormsby.
Here.
Councillor Downs.
Here.
Councillor Rankin.
Here.
Thank you. Next is presentation of any town council recognitions. I don't believe we have any. Let's see. Next is consider minutes of previous meetings.
Motion approved. Second.
Second, any questions, comments? All's in favor? Next is receive and review correspondence. We have a police call from Verona on February the 20th, as well as the ridership report from Down East Transportation for February. Any questions on either of those?
No.
Very good. Thank you. Next is ordinances to consider or introduce. We have 3 second readings this evening. First, second reading is the fee ordinance update, and I'll read a town document.
What you have in front of you is the entire schedule of fees with those for the marina and the town dock. I will note that although it showed that the former inside run for 20-foot slips was 55 and it's gone to 50, in actuality that it was not 55. That was not, it was 45 and it's going to 50, but it showed as 55 in the fee schedule. But I spoke to our harbor master who clarified that that was not what had been charged, just as a note.
So I have one other thing. It was my oversight. I don't know if it's not clear enough, but on the cruise ship side, the title of everything is overnight, but by cruise ship I did not put $3 per foot per night. That was my intention, but I can see where that might be confusing. So if the council would like to add the word per night.
Well, it says $3 per foot per day.
Does it say that?
Yep.
Okay.
Someone may have added that when they did the...
Okay, thank you. I just remembered what I did, thank you.
That's why she looked them over.
That's why I read the report before I came to the meeting.
Any questions or comments on that? Very good. And we'll take that up at our next meeting, correct? All right.
No, the public hearing's later on down.
That's what I meant to say. Yep.
Okay.
Next is a second reading, update to the Town Code, Chapter 6, Section 2.3, Festivals, and Section 2.8, Public Entertainments.
There were 2 changes that the council asked for at the last meeting. Those have been incorporated. That was under where it said trash shall be removed immediately upon completion of the event. And when events take place over multiple days, all trash shall be removed immediately upon completion of each day's event. The other change was to change the language about notifications of the parade to be to the deputy police chief and deputy fire chief versus the public safety director. Those were the 2 changes.
Good. Questions or comments?
Are we looking for council comments?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I did read Leslie's email and the other email, and it does bring some reservation. You know, if an organization's going to put an event together, it wouldn't feel right to say, well, we're going to back a bus in here. And furthermore, I think it's a temporary thing, because if we get the train tracks, we can stop using that for events. So I do have some concerns around that.
Yeah, I obviously read those too, and one thing for me that I think a lot of the success of this is going to hinge on really is communication prior to and even during the event, right? So I don't think anybody anticipates that anyone from public safety or the harbor master or anyone is looking to disrupt anything unnecessarily. I think probably quite the opposite. And the goal here, to me, isn't to preclude anyone from having a festival or whatever, but to me, it just, and I don't know how you would put this in here, but yeah, just the communication piece, I think, is going to, the success of this rides on it.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's why we did the 60 days,
Right,
and that's why we said, you know, we need to meet with deputy police chief, meet with the fire chief, meet with me, you know, the harbor master, all that. That's for that reason, so that we can communicate all that and arrange these things way ahead of time, so there's no surprises.
right. There was one question that came in that I did want to make sure that it was just a clarification in terms of handicapped access to the parking lot at the marina. Is that,
Right, so the marina parking lot wouldn't, what we said in this is that it wouldn't be closed off or obstructed in any way. We didn't say, well, we said that exact thing, it would not be
Right.
obstructed in any way. So if they're allowed to park in there, they would still be allowed to park in there.
The handicap would still be the same.
Perfect.
Changes. We just didn't want the whole lot closed down so the voters couldn't get in.
Yep.
So that remains the same.
thank you.
Which I do still have a reservation about having such an absolute statement in there. If there's something that comes up with the town that they want, you know, that we want to use it, this is shutting it down completely. So that's my one reservation. It doesn't sit well with me because it says no event shall take place. So if we have something that we decide that we need to take place there, we can't. So.
Well, the alternative is to have something ambiguous, and then people think we're playing favorites. So,
I mean, I understand you guys' thinking on it. For me, just when I read that, is the one thing that I just, we're shutting it down. So, I don't know how people feel about it, but,
No, I agree with you, Dan. It's tough to have a strong statement like that.
yep,
Things come up.
yep.
I would think if there's going to be a provision that if things come up, there would have to be some definition of what constituted those things, so that we were not subject to criticism that, well, you did your own event, but you didn't do my event, or you did
Yeah.
X, but you didn't do Y. That's if we're going to define when it is allowed, then it would need more definition, I think, for that, just to avoid, it would be clearer for people to understand what it took for an event to close that down.
Yep.
and we did want it to be absolute during the boating season,
Which totally, that does make sense to me.
which is the majority of the time when events would take place, with the exception of possibly Halloween.
So would that be the definition then that we would put in there, is that during the boating season, from this date to this date, there are no events that can be held and blocked off, and then, you know, otherwise, then the place could be used for something different if they're doing a, like, that's the part for me, like, I totally understand the part of, like, boaters pay to put their boats there, but we're shutting it down for the year with that statement, so.
You could make it consistent with your parking regulation for the marina, which is from May 15th to, actually, I think it's June 1. June 1st to September 30th,
October 31st.
or October 15th. That it, you know, that would leave the prior to June 1 and the Halloween thing or whatever after that.
And when do the docks come out again?
They come out by November 1st.
And they go in the parking lot?
Yeah.
So,
So half the parking lot's full at that period anyway.
Yep.
so. But I have no objection to using the parking lot dates as the dates on there.
I'm okay with that. That's
Yeah, I have
it.
no problem with that.
Yep, no issue here.
I think sometimes it's confused too, of marina parking and town dock parking.
Mm-hmm.
People kind of bundle it together, not
Right.
realizing we're talking about two completely different places.
Yep. Okay. Well, we'll have a public hearing on that shortly.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. And then the last second reading is an update to Appendix H, the sign ordinance. Anything?
I don't think there were any changes to that.
No. Any questions or comments on that from either the council or the public?
Nope.
Very good. We'll have a public hearing on that momentarily as well. Let's see, next are discussion items. First is town picnic / volunteer fair.
At the last council meeting, you asked that this be on the agenda for discussion for our potential dates and locations, and here it is.
Well, we've been talking about it a year or more now, so I think we should get the ball rolling on getting groups together on, I don't even know all the organizations that you can volunteer for. I don't think anybody does. And that's the point, get people's awareness and have a good time doing it.
Would the day of the Bridge the Gap be a good day where it's early spring, people are out? We combine it somehow with that?
It's really fast,
Yeah,
like
Okay.
around the corner, fast.
I thought it was like middle May?
It's like May 9th.
May 7th is the date of
Seventh.
the race.
Okay.
That doesn't feel fast to anyone except me. Okay.
And it is budget season.
Yeah, it's fewer than 60 days, yep, yep.
I think June, July would be good. Nice weather to get people out.
When Heart and Soul did their group fair, they had a list of literally every group in the community of any nature, and had them in the high school auditorium with the opportunity to tell people about what they did and what ideas that they were going to take on for Heart and Soul and those kind of things. So I think that we certainly have a source of outreach, and then Bucksport Next also incorporates a wide range of groups that are in the community that could. You talked about, Mayor Stewart talked about a picnic or whatever. I just, we can put together an idea about what something might look like, but I need to have some boundaries, like financial ones, and sort of, you want to do hot dogs, hamburgers, and have groups show up and sort of set up their own tables and stuff, and where would we do that? Would it be a school facility? Would it be...
I think we'd mentioned high school parking lot
Yeah.
with a barbecue type deal.
Yeah.
Sure.
where
Everyone
we do-
okay if I bring you back something that says, here's some possible dates, here's how we'd structure it, here's, everybody could come, encourage the groups to participate to try and attract.
I agree with Mark on this, that we do it in combination with another event that's going on. That'll bring people in for the event, then it will be freely advertised.
I understand Sue's point, though, that May 8th might be, 7th maybe.
Yeah,
a little aggressive,
that seems a bit
but-
early to me too, but,
But I do agree with you, yeah. What if we did a picnic? There's always people coming back. What time is that, Paul? Like, people that graduated, alumni come back. Was it usually second, third week in July?
Seems like it, or maybe even the first.
It seems like a lot of people come back, but right around the same time.
Yeah.
Or a
During
good
May
time to do a
Festival.
picnic.
It's usually,
During Bay Festival.
it was always
Yeah.
the third weekend.
The third weekend?
The third weekend in July, that's where Bay
That's a
Festival is.
thought. A lot of people come back, and it might, if we had a community-wide picnic, and
What is the day that the fort is going to have fireworks on the 15th?
Well, maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something else that would be happening, that if we had a picnic that people could... then do something else. But the third week, if that's when there are a lot of people around because they're coming back for,
A lot of people do come back.
For reunions
Yeah,
and stuff.
a lot of
The
reunions and stuff, and that
reunion.
might be a good time to do it.
And the weather will probably be cooperative.
No, now that you said that.
I know. I heard words come out of my mouth, and I
Yeah,
said,
you are,
Paul, what do you do?
we won't have a weekend between now and September.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, I will see what we can put together and bring it back, and you can give me a,
You did it at the Reggie Ken Field and combined it with a softball tournament as a fundraiser.
That's a good idea, too.
Sounds like fun.
We used to have softball tournament, and it was a fundraiser for Ronald McDonald House back when I was a kid, and it was an awesome day.
I think that would be fine, except there's lack of parking up that way. So maybe you still do it at the high school, and you can do it on the high school softball field. You have a softball field and then that whole circle up there.
Huh? Just a thought.
Yeah.
hey, it would combine, because the point is, in addition to just getting everyone together,
Yeah.
is to have people be exposed to the groups in the community in case they can get more members or volunteers. Okay. Thank you.
Next is Central Street sewer line replacement.
The Infrastructure Committee discussed tonight the need to replace 350 feet of sewer line on Central Street from Broadway up that's experiencing significant amount of problems. We have information from Maine Water, and we have an estimate also from Oliver Engineering of what the cost with that would be. I've talked to Oliver and I've met with Maine Water, and both concur that the only way to really know the cost of the project is to have the design done and bid it out. And the proposal, if possible, is to have this done this year, so that anything we did to Central Street in 2023, that the underpinning work had already been done. And so the Infrastructure Committee voted to recommend to the council that I be authorized to get the design work for this project done. So that's what I'm looking for.
Questions, comments?
Make a motion.
I was going to say to make a motion.
Motion to approve,
Second.
pursuing the estimate.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Again, any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Last item under discussion items is development at the Old Methodist Church. I believe Mr. Campbell is here, Richard Campbell is here. There you go.
Hello,
Hey.
my name's Dick Campbell. I miss coming before you people. Serviced very well by our representative. And it's interesting, in this cycle, they've changed the district, so Bucksport is separated from Orrington. I just can't stand not being in a fight, so I will be running for the Orrington, Holden, Eddington district, but Bucksport's always in my heart, so anytime, you know where I live. We've been talking to the harbor master about this year's Fullport Loop, and sort of worked around the cruise ship to a point where I think we've got Harvey Gamage, the only training tall ship in the nation, coming here. They train 16 to 23 students for a week, and they're up and down the East Coast, and they'd really like to come up to Penobscot and get to Bangor, so we're working on it. We'll be back before you at that point to talk about it. And that's somewhere in the 21st to 23rd of July. So I'm here before you to talk about the Methodist Church on Franklin Street. I've been talking and working with the owner, Hugh Sinclair, and we've been looking at putting some residential units in it. And we've allocated space of up to 16 units from a 400 square foot efficiency with 2 of them. And then we've got 1 or 2 at 1,000 to 1,100 square feet. It lays out pretty well. The first level would have either 4 or 6 units on it, and then in the sanctuary, it's an 18-foot posted space, so you can have townhouses up there. The concern is, I'm talking with code enforcement and economic development, we're running into parking concerns. It's zoned 1 space per unit, so in fact, that building could only have 1 residential unit in it. Of the understanding that you have spaces across the street, which are about 12 units. And I'm here to see if you would be interested in developing the church and maybe allocating that space to the parking requirements. My thought is, I used to own the old Sleepers building in Bangor, and behind that, on Columbia Street, there's a single level deck, parking deck. And the thought would be to come off Franklin Street with a parking deck and then still have the 12 units on below. So that would allow us 24 spaces more or less. And of course, we'd have to have an easement from the church to get to that lower level. But I guess I'm here just to find out if you have any interest in that. I guess it is on a list somewhere for demolition. I think it's just been so much a part of the community. It might be nice to maintain it. And the reason we have that many units is we want to try and maintain the fenestration of the building, the church itself, so the windows are still in the window openings. This front facade will be the same, the tower will be the same, but there's just not much space. I think there's 3 feet to the Central Street side and just enough for a drive-by on the other side. So, wondered if you had any interest.
I'd have to think about it. I don't know what are there any ramifications here with that? I mean, we would need, an easement would be needed. What else is there? You're talking building a deck off of Franklin so you'd come straight on, the parking would be above the existing.
If it's your pleasure.
What level of income are we looking at for these?
Market, and we've done some market research with the help of the town. It looks like somewhere in the $800 to $1,000 range.
Yep.
But market, not subsidy. 1 bedroom, so controls the numbers of people within the space from a couple to 1 person.
Yep. I mean, I'd be interested in seeing more, more on it, definitely.
Yeah, we have a housing need.
Yeah.
I just don't know the logistic, the legal part of
Yep.
the parking lot and everything.
The parking lot is, Jay, that parking lot is owned by the church?
No, a segment's owned by the town.
I know a segment it is, but there would be access to it.
Right, the apartment building on the corner across the street has built access down into it, and they're using it for their parking right now.
Yes, we discovered that. Dino has brought in a bunch of gravel and built a road basically from his apartment house, the yellow on the corner there, down onto that. But he doesn't have any kind of permission from us or anything to have done that. I don't know why he did it without talking to us. that said, I haven't gone after it or anything, it's not really hurting anything. From what I've seen when I drive by, correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause you plow it, but I've seen 3-4 cars down there.
There's no more traffic in the parking lot because of what was
Just makes
done.
it easier for them to get
It's
around.
easier access for them. The people that live there was using it to park
Yeah.
already.
Which was fine, because it's public parking, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, another deck would relieve any extra pressure, I guess, on the parking lot. I'm not sure if, does the town have any ownership interest in a section of it?
Yeah, I think like the spots closest to Dino, there was an old lot there
Yeah.
that a house was there. Those ones in the town, I think, but probably 12 spots, is that
I
what
think
you
that,
identified?
I think that's kind of thought it was 60 feet, 12.
Yeah.
But the remainder of that is the church's parking lot.
I'd like to, even if it was a small sketch, just so I could visualize it.
Sure.
It'd be easier for me to.
Yeah, we have some of those done, so I just wondered if you had interest. One space kind of blew that concept away.
Yeah, I'd be willing to.
Yeah, we need
think
more
about
housing.
it, just-
Yeah, I have no philosophical objection to it, so I'd like to see just what the plan is and go from there.
So we'll develop it more and come back before you.
Sounds good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, our agenda items. First is resolved 2022-35 to approve use of undesignated fund balance for the replacement of floats at the town marina.
Motion approved.
Second.
Seconded. Questions, comments?
We talked about this as a discussion item at the last council meeting, at which our economic development director had presented a request to finish the floats at the marina, to get them done this year so that for next season they were done all at once. And he had presented two funding possibilities, one being fund balance, one being ARPA funds. It was my understanding from the meeting that ARPA funds were not exactly the right choice. And then there was a discussion about the use of tax dollars in marina property, which had not been done prior to. And that discussion evolved into the fact that this marina has been in the ownership of the town since 2014 and has proven to be a definite asset to the community, and that town assets and infrastructure have to be maintained and have to be kept up if they're going to be used, and that the use of tax dollars as an investment in this would not be a negative thing, which is a long-winded way of explaining why the resolve is written the way it is for the use of fund balance as opposed to any other funding source or a loan from the marina or any of that kind of thing.
Questions, comments?
The cost to do this? I read it, but I forgot what it was.
$200,000, 200,000, 580 or something along. It's a little over $200,000.
Is that just for the floats, or is that all inclusive? They'll come pre-wired, pre-plumbed, or do we add more funds on top of that to get everything hooked up?
This is for the construction of the floats and the anchors that go with it. The wiring and all that is always separate from these. We have that.
We'd still be using that, not to say that that doesn't need to be replaced eventually too, but yeah, we would still be using the current wiring. We did add 2 anchors because we are moving the first section of docks floats down farther, 25 feet. So we need a couple new anchors to put that in, and that was to add more room for the fueling.
And undesignated fund balance as we sit here tonight?
A little over $5 million.
Any other questions? Council? All right, we have a motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Next is Resolve 2022-36 to approve purchase of a 2022 Wacker Newson WL28 wheel loader. What's the pleasure of the council?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion second. Questions, comments? We did hear about this in the earlier committee meeting, infrastructure committee meeting.
Do you want a little 2-second?
I would love one.
I thought so.
Yep.
Okay. In 2017, the town experimented with the use of a wheel loader, smaller machine for our sidewalk maintenance, because the machine, number one, was half the price of the normal trackless articulated snowblower machines which were only usable to do sidewalks. And this other machine has multiple attachments that allows it to be used in other seasons. And everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with the fact that we now road edge. When we've paved, we bring the sides of the road up to the pavement to avoid the drop-offs on the edge and to avoid earlier degrading of paving because of that breaking, and to not allow drainage to wear away the pavement. And we did that as an experiment to see if this machine would do as good a job as the other sidewalk plow, and if it would have the stamina to do other work as well. And as our Public Works Director stated in the infrastructure meeting, we wondered if it would be awesome, and it has been. So it's set for replacement, but the current one is in good shape. But what this provides us is a backup, which will give us an additional 5 or more years on the machine that we already have as a backup to the new one that we buy, which again is still half the cost of a new single-purpose vehicle. And finally, that there are only 4 of these units in the main for the vendor that's doing it in this year, and 3 are spoken for. The supply chain disruptions have been significant, and so they've located it. It's been offered to the town, and infrastructure recommended that the council move forward with the purchase.
I just have a general question. It not only applies to this machine, but other things that we've purchased along with COVID. We got quite a puddle of money to put towards whatever, related to COVID. I know in previous meetings you approved a new chassis for the fire department tanker, but that price had gone up $7,000 because of COVID and materials and the way it goes. So along the lines with this piece of equipment, has there been a price increase caused by COVID? Do we know what that is? Or, there's material shortages, chips and all that. And so can we use any of that big puddle of money to reimburse these different departments for dump trucks, pickup trucks, police cruisers, chassis, this particular piece of equipment, try and put some money back into our budgets?
The only way that the town could utilize ARPA funds for these kinds of infrastructure purchases is if the town took advantage of the final rule that says you can just state that you had a standard revenue loss due to COVID. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to You don't have to show us that you lost anything. You just say you lost it, and you can use X percent. And for us, it would be virtually all of those funds, all $520,000. The problem with that is that we didn't lose revenue, and even though we could say, check the box, we claim the thing, and nobody would come get us, ethically, I have a really hard time saying, I've just checked the box so that we can do what we want with this money. The council can do whatever it wants
I get it,
to.
although I know a guy who can get you into witness protection, no problem. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
No, there would be we wouldn't be violating anything. The town could claim that. I mean, they did it so that communities wouldn't have to keep track and do whatever, that they could just, and many are. And if the council
I just see it
does.
as through no fault of our own. You know, we had to, the fire department was so busy with the uptick on the amount of calls that things got stretched out. That amounted to real money. The same thing here with, hey, there's only 4 units, as you say, available because, and, you know, just trying to get some money back into different budgets.
I think it's a really good point. Like, I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like, to get some of that back, if it's 10 grand more, you know, for the. When it comes to the paperwork, I don't know what. I also see yours.
As I said, that's my personal heartburn. It doesn't mean that it would be illegal if the council decided to say, claim revenue loss. It's a standard deduction. You're entitled to it. Do it. I'm just, my personal opinion isn't what the council has to do. It's just that as the one signing the thing, it just...
And the word revenue was the word they used in that?
Revenue.
Okay. This doesn't seem to be revenue, it seems more like expenditure to me.
Well, it's revenue loss. Did the community lose revenues coming in? Did we not get as many parking fees? Did we not get as many ambulance fees? Did we not get as many of so many communities who had civic centers and who had all these other things lost huge amounts of money. All that revenue didn't come in, and they suffered for it. And anybody who's had it has claimed big amounts of their ARPA money to reimburse themselves for what they had budgeted to receive. So,
you know, and to that, Dan, you mentioned weeks ago, you know, it would be nice to use it for something that the community as a whole benefits from, as opposed to a piece of equipment that nobody's going to recognize as anything. And I know it's just shifted money, Paul, but it seems like a better way to.
No, it's just a matter of let's throw it on the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Jay a question. Is this going to put 2 sidewalk machines out at a time, or are we just still going to use one? And this one's just going to be...
Put 2 when staff will allow.
Is that what your plan is, that we have 2 sidewalk plows
I would
working?
like to be able to do that, yes.
Thank you.
Just back to your point for a minute, so it wouldn't sit well with me either, just as one person on this council. You know, there's a difference sometimes between legal and ethical and moral. And if, I'll state it clearly, if you're willing to play games with the words on something like this, and almost come out and say it, well, we're just going to check the box, then what the hell else are we checking the box on? What the hell else are we willing to do that on? And I'm just not comfortable with that as one person on this council. That's just not how this goes here, as far as I'm concerned. You don't check boxes. You do the right thing. It's my 2 cents. But yeah. If we can't trust ourselves beyond that, then what's the point? I'm done. Soapbox is away now. So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments, council? All those in favor? Opposed? Next is resignations, appointments, assignments, and elections. First is planning board resignations. We have 3. Steve Feit, Brian McDonald, and David Grant. Whoop.
That was my phone.
Okay.
It fell on the floor.
Any objection to taking those all as a group?
No.
We'll entertain a motion on that.
Motion to accept resignation.
Second.
One second. Questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor? Opposed? And next we have planning board appointments, and we have a recommendation from the services committee for that.
The services committee tonight recommends Terry Doty, Mark Neslucin, and Crystal Harlan to the planning board.
Questions, comments?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed?
One side note, Paul, I did want to thank David Grant. He's spent a lot of time on that board. I want to say 30 years?
Oh,
It's been a long time.
He did his time. It was nice of him to do that.
thank you, Mark. Good point. Next is approval of quick claims, discharges, and deeds. Do not have any. And next we have town manager report and the department head reports.
Thank you. I had my first meeting with the unions and the department stewards this week to begin contract discussions. As anticipated, the cost of living jump combined with escalating comparable wage rates for public safety personnel will be topics of discussion. Our next discussion is set for March 22nd. But I will tell you that, as always, our employees are reasonable and professional in our contract discussions. A reminder to people that Public Works has posted roads to heavy loads to prevent damage in this freeze-thaw season. And another reminder is that the second half of property taxes are due by March 31st, 2022 to avoid interest. Preliminary bid packages are in the review stage for the major culvert replacement projects at Jacob Buck Pond and Bucks Mills that were approved in the 2019 referendum. And depending on bids, those projects should be done this year. Registration is now open for the Bridge the Gap race that will be held from Prospect to Bucksport on Saturday, May 7th. For more information or to register, go to bridgethegaprace.com. We ran the ad for volunteers in the Enterprise last week, and so far I've had 3 people call or email who are interested in helping in our Neighbors Helping Neighbors program. I am also going to post it on our Facebook in hopes of increasing those numbers. And finally, I would like to thank HOME, our regional homeless shelter, and Pastor Peter Remick for assisting the town with helping a transient homeless person this past week. The person's needs fell outside the ability of the town to financially assist, but with teamwork between town office staff, public safety staff, home staff, and Pastor Remick, the person was able to be assisted. This is not the first time that HOME has been a resource for the town, and we appreciate the role that they play for those in our region in terms of helping many people and families with childcare, food security, an affordable resale shop, and a wood bank, in addition to providing shelter for the homeless.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you to all the department heads for their reports as well. All right, next is set public hearings and or hold public hearings and approval of any licenses or permits. We have 3 public hearings this evening. The first is public hearing update to fees ordinance on marina and town dock fees. Declare the public hearing open. Any questions or comments from the public?
Getting official, pull out my laptop. Didn't want to forget anything. So my name is Derek Cole. You guys probably know me as one of the organizers of Bucksport Pride, and I'm also involved in several other community organizations that are so happy to have the waterfront in our back pocket for the use of events. And I have several questions about these proposed changes that I'd like to ask you, the councilors, and the team of public safety officials and town employees. that have been building these plans and these changes. Oh, am I on the wrong thing?
I think you are.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Never mind. Get them confused. I'll be back.
Just gonna say he's ahead of himself, I think.
I was all ready to hear what you had to say, and thank God Mark's here, because I should have been more specific. Any questions? No, I'm just kidding. Questions on the marina and town dock fees? Okay. Close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
So we're moving second. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, Derek.
Okay.
All right. The next item is public hearing, update to Town Code Chapter 6, Section 2.3, festivals, and Section 2.8, public entertainment. Public hearing.
I'm just going to stand here, right? We can do that now?
No.
We need to do it on the camera.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Seems like no one else does, so. Okay, so I won't read everything that I already started saying. You guys heard me. So I have some questions, and I don't expect anyone to actually answer them. These are just things I want to be thinking about because I want you guys to be thinking about because I've been thinking about them. Specifically, the parking, traffic, movement, and pedestrian safety. There is language in there about when additional police officers or EMS personnel are needed for the event, or extra personnel are called into the event, the nonprofit organization will then be billed per the requirements set forth in the union contracts. So my question there is, what if an emergency occurs at Bucksport Pride and additional officers, firefighters, or EMS are called in? Will Bucksport Pride be billed?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So that's an emergency. That's
Okay.
not what we're talking about.
Okay, great.
Emergencies are treated like any other emergency
Okay.
when 911 is called. So what we're talking about is we're expecting 500 people, and all of a sudden 2,000 are show up,
Okay.
and we have to call in extra officers, extra staff because we need more people to handle the
Okay.
volume, which is a good problem to have. But in that case, we'd have to call in officers that are home, on their vacation day or whatever,
Yeah.
and bring them. That's when we would do
Okay.
that. It's not something that would be,
So is that how it's written, though?
yes,
Okay.
that,
Okay. So my other question regarding that was what's the gauge? How do we determine if an event brings X number of people, we need X number of staff, officers, etc.?
the reason that's written the way it's written is because the police want to be able to determine that. So if you've got 500 ladies quilting versus 500 thrash metal people moshing, it's different. So there's no way to say, if you put a specific number down and say if there's 200 people, then we need this many officers. That's not necessarily the case when it's this versus that. So it's subjective,
So
and
people
therefore,
quilting are going to be deemed safer than people moshing. See, I'm only bringing this up because
yeah,
that's confusing to me. Some people could perceive Pride as a dangerous situation. Maybe something bad happens behind the scenes, and we associate maybe some less than desirable people coming to the event, and so now we need a dozen officers on duty.
no.
But wait, hold on though. The ship. Dick Campbell was here. I wish he was still here, because I think he would benefit from this conversation too. I protested the ship that came in. I was one of the problems. More officers got called in because of that. So, is that an emergency situation, or is this something that the officers and everyone involved are going to act on a feeling rather than a gauge of X number of people?
And thousands of people came to see that ship.
Yeah.
To the point where our public safety director and Rich were down there directing traffic because there was so much chaos.
I understand, but the question is,
That's a
are we
situation
basing
where-
this on X number of people or a feeling?
We're basing it on reality.
That's why we hire the professionals that we hire. is because they're able to make that decision of whether or not it's a safe situation or not.
Does
That
anyone?
was also a town event. I mean, we didn't charge for that event. That ship came in without charges, just as to see how it would go. So it got big because of a controversy. It may not have been big at all because the ship was in, what was it, Booth Bay, Rich? Just before, and it wasn't a huge
It was
event
in
like
Bangor, I believe, right? And it got canceled in Bangor?
It got canceled in Bangor, but
Yeah.
that's why it ended up here.
Anyways, I don't need to get stuck on the ship, but I hope that I've illustrated my question here is that, I mean, yes, we have professionals. I completely agree with you. I'm not looking to pick on anybody or be a problem here, but I just don't see X number of people requires X number of professionals on duty. That's just, like, I think I need to see that if I'm organizing an event, because if myself and 6 other organizers of Bucksport Pride are stuck with a giant bill at the end of the thing that we didn't plan on, like, and we're handing that off to, like, Health Equity Alliance, I mean, that's not fun for anybody, for the town, for me, for anyone. I would just ask that we explore that a little bit further and that that's written clearly. Additionally, let's see. The bathrooms are brought up there. What if it breaks? Which it does. I mean, last year at Pride, we had 3 or 4 people out there with plungers trying to take care of one of the toilets. If that breaks, does Bucksport Pride get billed for the situation in which someone has to come in, or is that the town? I don't know. Additionally, I just want to know why the town parking, the town dock parking lot has been used for festivals for years. I mean, I used to come to the Bay Fest when I was a little kid. It's all that I knew about Bucksport because I grew up in Ellsworth. It was just the waterfront and the parking lot. And I feel like making the cruise ships a priority over an event happening there, it just does not make sense to me. Why are we, like, putting them in front of festivals when I think the main issue here is buses getting down to the ship to then take people out of town. If I was on the cruise as a passenger and I saw a lively, awesome event going on, whether it's the Bay Fest, whether it's Pride, whether it's Ghostport, like whatever, I'm going to think, wow, Bucksport is busy and bustling. Why am I getting on the bus going to Acadia right now? I just don't see why there's a priority there. There's language about the parking lot entrance, refuse closure of the town dock parking lot entrance for an event. I mean, I think we can work together as organizers and employees of the town to have common sense rules and plans. If a bus needs to come down, just tell me what I need to do. Don't put tables here. The bus needs to be here. That's simple. And additionally, I'm just a little bit frustrated about what's happening right now with these changes because I believe it was August of last year I heard that a waterfront committee was being formed. I applied to be on that. I'm not upset that I was told no. That's fine. What I'm upset about is I was assured that rules for the waterfront usage were not going to be discussed.
They weren't. This was done by public town employees. This was not done by the waterfront committee.
Thank you for clearing that up. And I'll go to my second point is, when were we going to bring organizers to the table to have a discussion about all these changes? Wouldn't it make sense to reach out to your community and your organizers that you're changing rules on to just have a conversation before the public hearing?
This is how ordinances are written.
This is how okay. So I'm completely off base then. It wouldn't make sense to have a conversation with organizers beforehand?
Well, there have been a number of conversations about this, Derek. This is not the first. We had the second reading of this tonight. We've talked about this in committee as well as at the last council meeting. I see your point, but the argument doesn't hold water, Derek, that this has not been discussed.
Well, I mean before meetings. I mean, I would just think that if I'm making plans that are going to affect usage of the waterfront, and the main thing here, yeah, I'm not trying to accuse anybody.
No, I know you're not. No.
I don't want to sound like, oh, poor Derek, I was left out, because honestly,
No.
I don't care.
When I asked the council what their pleasure was about the solar ordinance and how we should go about that, you know what I was told? Bring us something for us to discuss in committee.
Okay.
This is the same thing. You have to have something for us to sit down and talk about. So this is what, we had the public safety director, deputy chief, fire chief, Jake, me, economic development, harbor master, and we had, I don't even know how many meetings, and hashed out this language about what was the best way. And the goal is to try and make it equitable and fair for everybody, and to protect public safety. And a lot of this came from public safety because they had concerns. And we also had concerns about budgets, people's budgets being completely blown because of unexpected expenses that were just unplanned. And so, you know, if we're expecting Ron or whoever is doing the waterfront, taking care of trash and cleaning bathrooms and stuff, to come in on his days off to do that stuff, he deserves to be paid, and he paid overtime, and somebody's got to pay for that. So if it's a, you know, if it's a group or a for-profit company or whatever, then that's where this came from.
Well, I just want to just reiterate, I was not trying to sound accusatory or pick on anyone or anything, but those are my concerns, and I definitely want to also clarify that I wasn't trying to insinuate that it hasn't been spoken about. I've been following it, you know, so sorry if it did come off that way, but ultimately, this is going to affect a lot of people that are trying to make a living, and a lot of people that are just trying to have a good time in the community and bring people together. And I would much rather in the future, as an organizer, not have to get up in front of everybody for a public hearing, and maybe have some collaborative work, and just have a seat at the table when stuff like this is being discussed, to maybe just iron some things out to answer some questions. I guess that's all that I want to express. Thank you for your time. I just hope that you guys are weighing this out as well, because it just seems like it's getting harder and harder to just pull off an event. And I think that the town really thrives off of having events down there, and I just want to see it continue to happen. And just whenever I see more and more fees being proposed, as someone who's doing grassroots work with shoestring budgets, no money often, it's just unfortunate to see language that's just saying, hey, if something happens, then you might be billed for it. I understand, but I also just am not super comfortable with that. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Not to drag anything on.
Sure.
But you guys, that
Not to
last
drag
year
anything
was
on,
the...
sorry.
No, me. You guys are last year was the first year you had an event down there.
Yeah, it was.
Cruise ship's been coming here for over 15 years.
Can you come up here, Mike? Can you come up to the microphone,
We've
please?
always worked to try to have a good relationship with the cruise ship company. As far as events down at the public area down there, we've had 2 events that have closed, but not completely closed the dock off. We've always been able to bring a bus down when we had to. We just had to be careful how we did it, and that's exactly what I explained on my conditional report to their group, that if a bus does show up, if I do have a cruise ship that does happen to call and want to come in, that I would be able, they can help me. I'll go over, we'll get a bus down and out without any problems. Nobody's trying to shut down their events. But the waterfront's becoming a very popular spot, and everybody wants to have an event there, but I don't think it should shut down our waterfront. That's
Mike,
my opinion.
I guess, Mike, could it not be that if a cruise ship comes in unscheduled, that they don't have the bus option? Is that not an option?
We tried that,
Well,
and we had an
it's not just
accident.
Cruise ships. It needs to be clear that it's
Private
also
yachts.
yachts and stuff, and maybe
Yeah.
you get trucks down there to unload groceries, to unload supplies, fuel. I mean, there's stuff that needs to happen, and they have to be able to access that.
I guess the point is, I mean, if people take their time and invest time and energy into an event, and then there's uncertainty around it about whether, if somebody happens to come in, it's going to make it difficult. I mean, again, it does come back to what's our priority, the community or the dockage fee?
It's not a dockage fee, it's the whole event, the waterfront itself.
But again,
It's not just the dockage fee.
it comes back to what Paul said. It's about them communicating with each other and figuring out a way to get down, get people loaded or unloaded, and then, you know, I don't think it's
I
necessary.
don't have any problem with working with any events.
Oh, and I think, Mike, we can take care of this in a couple of years if we can get the train tracks. We're not going to
Yeah,
talk
that's right.
The point of articulating that events need to be planned well in advance and meet with staff and organize is to avoid exactly what you're talking about, which is somebody needing to do something, because if we, who's going to be at the dock, the cruise ship scheduled, which we are, which is
Right.
the only commitment we have is to that schedule, and you put your event on a day that is not scheduled to be that. I can tell you, in the real world here, that dock is booked with something when for every space that ship isn't, it's booked otherwise. There wouldn't be room for somebody to call, and there wasn't 7 or 8 times last year when they called because of weather or because of whatever and wanted to come in. The answer was no. We've got a yacht on the dock. We've got a catamaran. You can't come. And if there's already an event scheduled that's been planned, he knows that. That's the communication piece that reduces the likelihood, unless there was some big thing, that there would be any disruption of the event at all. The issue is becoming, if the event people don't pay for it, who should? Because the bigger the events get, the more staff time that's required, the more things that go into it, the more somebody's budget's going to go up. And the question is, what's the reasonable expectation for municipal contribution to cover events that are sponsored by others, whether it's a profit, nonprofit? The concession to nonprofits in this one was that with the regular people on duty, an additional officer and 2 additional EMTs is the no additional charge thing. And for the majority of nonprofit kind of events, not an issue. I don't think we'll see that. But if there is something that generates, like the waterfront concerts do in Bangor, there's no way that John Q. Citizen in Bucksport wants to see that in their property taxes. That additional security that's required by those types of events. And I think that this committee is trying to manage where we're going in a way that makes it sustainable for the people who pay the bills here, which is all of you as taxpayers. I mean, I read that's what we pay our tax dollars for. No, our tax dollars are not paid to pick up the trash and clean up and provide 10 extra security people for an event sponsored by entities that then walk away with no responsibility to it. That isn't, in my estimation. There's some middle ground here in terms of what the town is responsible for and what events. This committee looked at what other communities our size and do. Well, how do they treat their waterfront? What do they charge? And I can tell you that what we're proposing is a lot less intrusive than most of what communities are. I certainly understand we all want things on the waterfront, but the fact that there have to be rules for it and that we're not the same as we always were, and the world isn't the same as it was. So the more pressure there is on the property tax, because we don't have the 900-pound gorilla sitting at the other end of the street that could absorb all this, the more we have to consider where the money is going to come from to fund these. I understand your frustration there, and believe me, there's no goal here not to allow things on that waterfront. It's how do we manage it in such a way that it's equitable to the people who are paying for all this stuff. You know, that they have to be factored in too.
My point coming up is just that we can have these things and still have the marina and the dock open.
Right.
They can all happen together.
I just didn't want to seem like, we have an event down there, and because a boat needs to come in, they take priority over the community. That's
the
all.
priority was, excuse me for 10 minutes, we got to bring a bus down, or we got to bring a truck down, and then we do it safely,
And like I said, in 2 years, hopefully in 2 years, we can reorient further down the waterfront.
Yeah, we
I mean, I
move
think all of us-
the gazebo, and we'll be all set.
I'm not gonna say that.
But maybe, and I don't mean to shut off comment here if people have more things to say, but let's use a tangible example, since you brought it up, Derek, in terms of the Pride event that's upcoming this spring. Because of this, if, for example, there's an emergency with a cruise ship and it comes in, and the harbor master comes to the organizers of the festival and says, "Listen, we've got a cruise ship coming in due to an emergency." At that moment, because of this, you know exactly what the expectations are. That over the course of maybe 30 to 60 minutes, a bus will be brought down, for example, and brought out. And I'm not saying that I'm just saying that's the goal here. The goal is not to, back to what the town manager said, and then I'll stop, is to preclude anybody from using the waterfront. It's to make sure that there are rules around it, and so that everybody is operating under the same set of expectations.
Would it be absurd to request that what you just stated about the plan being, hey, excuse me, I need to get the bus in there? Would it be absurd to develop a plan, because this has been brought up several times in the past, not just tonight, to have a plan? Because like you said that you were very clear in your conditional approval for our event. I emailed you because it wasn't clear, to see if we could sit down and have a plan. Maybe you didn't see the email.
I didn't get an email.
Because I actually don't know what the plan would be. I have asked what that plan is, so that I can plan accordingly. Don't put tables here, don't put people here, because most likely if a bus has to come in, or if a truck has to come in to service a boat or something, they're going to need to be here.
Right.
Couldn't that just be outlined more? And I mean, hey, maybe while we're at it with the code enforcement changes, would it be a good idea to maybe make a packet that is given to organizers when they use the waterfront that explains some of these things and outlines general rules beyond code and general asks from the town?
It's already being done, it just hasn't been finalized because we were waiting until after this was approved.
Great, well, I'm glad to hear that. And Luke, I'm sorry if you're offended, but
No, not at all.
I just want to make it clear that I think that there's some gray area there. I'm not the only one talking in the community, so I figured I'd come here and make a fool of myself.
No, not at all.
And bring it up. And with that being said, I think a lot of the organizers in town would love a seat at the table as these plans continue to be developed.
Can I?
Sure.
I seem to be in the middle of this also. I think what we're looking at is a change of what's happened before. We had a Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce did the same thing the same way all the time, and everyone got used to the way that those events happened. Main Street Bucksport had separate leadership. They ran the ways that it always had run. there are new people running new activities, and things are being proposed that haven't been run the way that they were before. Now, nowhere in this ordinance does it say that people want to shut anything down for cruise ships. We've had yachts, we've had cruise ships, we've had whatever. When we had the Santa Maria here, and we had hundreds of people trying to get in and out of that parking lot, and that may not have been the right place to have people parking, because I don't think you guys, or the town people, pay me to direct traffic. I don't think you want me doing that. So events like that have opened our eyes. The Pride group last year offered to take care of the trash if we could provide trash bags. We don't need to charge if they're going to take care of themselves, and they put that in their application this year. That's a type of compromise in the conversation that happens, and it's true and it works.
Right.
But when there are events that are happening, and we're calling the police because somebody's being rowdy versus something we're having, that is now what the police, I think, are trying to weigh. If we're having an event and there's somebody who is against that and is trying to interfere with your event, and you are calling the police because of that person, they have to be prepared. Every time that this event's going on, that, hey, this may happen. It happened at Bay Festival one time. We had the gun rights people versus the anti-gun people in booths side by side. You know what happened then? Extra police had to come in and sit by that. So I think if we're going to talk about anything related to fees or public safety, who are the ones who actually discuss these fees, that they should be the ones who say, this is why we are saying this. 50 quilters versus 50 mosh. I was surprised to find out that there's more bad stuff that happens at a country concert than at a KISS concert. I mean, right? We don't think that. So I know emotions are high, and I know if people have things that they would like to add, whether it be Derek or Terry or Mary or any of the groups, come to the Economic Development Committee. It's the second Monday of each month. Bring it up there, because we do, for economic development, for community development, we need events. Mayor Hurley in Belfast wrote to the town, I think when Sue first got here, I was still at Camden National, don't stop what you're doing, don't stop taking your foot off the gas, because once you do, you may not get it back.
Right.
So, I was reminded about that today, and it's true, we shouldn't stop events, but we should look at how we're doing business, not to exclude, not to alienate anyone. But I oversee the waterfront. I get calls all the time that it looks like a memorial down there. There's too many benches. There's too many events. There's too many of this. And then I get calls the other way. We need more events. So I operate by the rule of 51. I'll never please 100% of the people, but if I can please 51 of you, I think I'm doing a good job. So with that, I'm going to shut up now. Chief Gagan has been messaging me during this meeting, and if he needs to be called to explain, you can give him a call soon.
Just one on process. The process is, as Luke outlined, which is someone puts something together, and then everyone gets to shoot at it. That's the public part of this. If we start creating stuff outside with select people and then say, oh, here, we're done, good, that's not a public process. This is uncomfortable and difficult and messy because it's transparent. It's out here in the open. Everyone, it's written down. If you don't like it, say, I think we should change section X to be Y, or I think this is the public's opportunity to input it, but it isn't because anyone's evil or negative. It's because everyone comes at this from a different perspective, and everything that everybody says is valuable. It informs the process, and it also informs sort of how this would work. Is someone going to deliberately schedule a cruise ship 6 months in advance on a date that you already know you've got a meeting? No. But there's no... That's not how this works. It isn't that you get it all set up and do everything and then we play gotcha. That's not it. The whole point of the conversation and the communication is to avoid it, to have these events go smoothly and well and not have to surcharge anybody for anything. I mean, if there was an emergency at an event, we're not going to charge an organizer for a heart attack or somebody fell down the walk, or that's just not going to. That's not the nature of what this is. But anyway, and the preliminary assessment of it allows public safety to do a good job of determining that, so that people have an idea up front. If you're going to bring in 2,000 people who are all mad about something, you're going to get a bill, because it's going to require more public safety. That's just the answer to it. So I'll shut up now, too.
Anything else? Heinz.
I'm Nancy Minot, Bucksport citizen. This is, I have something to say, but this has just opened up all kinds of other things, which I really like. I think that's what dialogue does. It gets you thinking about some other things. I appreciated Derek's comment about process, and I've learned a little bit more from you, Sue, but I'm thinking back to when there was a solar committee, and that was put out to the public. Who would like to be part of a solar committee? There was representation from the board.
Yeah, but you know what they said when I asked them if they wanted to help me write the ordinance? No, you do that. We're here to advocate for solar.
Well, the committee broke down. I have to say that I think COVID started to happen, and I never then heard about it again. I was one of those people. Anyways, I think that that's a heart and soul process. And it seems to me like it could be something to think about in terms of process, that if we're changing codes, those people that will be organizations or whatever, to have that voice in the beginning. You put it out. Who would like to be part of this dialogue in that beginning to join with staff and have the voice of the people represented more from the beginning. I appreciate the conversation around, I think the marina is a really important part of our community, but I also feel this tension sometimes that it's huge for economic development, but so is every one of these events. I mean, this is economic development, and I think we kind of need to weigh it. Mark brought that up, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, we want people to gather, and I think that it's a testament to this growing community that we are living in. I mean, we've been thrilled and excited that people want to have events, that, I'm thinking about the people that had, just 4 citizens that had at Halloween, they had a ghost story. We went to that, and there were all kinds of people out there, families out there. And yes, that was at Larry's, he was willing to have that take place at Wilson Hall on that property. But that would be a great event downtown to bring people down. I mean, the other thing that popped in my mind, when I'm a local shopper, and when I'm in, I check. So how you doing with local people? We don't have enough. We need to really bring the local people in. Well, what better way than to really promote these events? So, anyways, I appreciate this kind of dialogue. I think that it's really healthy in a community to be able to express that in a safe place, and that's what I feel like this is, a safe place. So anyways, what I had thought about, because when I first read through it, I just felt like it discouraged entertainment and events happening more than encouraging them. Some of the things, and I didn't do that research, that Sue filled me in a little bit, saying that the committee had looked to all these other communities and what kinds of things, and I didn't have time to do that research. But the liability insurance that a group had to do, and then the fees, and then I think the standards all made sense to me, that, yeah, you have an event, you pick up after yourself. I mean, that's what you teach your kids, you pick up after yourself, and those kinds of things just totally make sense. As a taxpayer, I'm excited about the growth in this community. I would support more of these events. I know I'm out, I'm an outlier, but I think it's a healthy thing for taxes to raise because it means that we are growing, that we need more police things, we need more fire, there are more houses being built, there's more, we're investing more in education, we're growing and so that doesn't hold me back. I'm a citizen here and I want to support all those things, even though maybe there's an event that I'm not interested in going to, but I want to support that because there are community neighbors, my friends, that's an important thing for them to do. It sort of reminds me of the same thing with schools. I always was an advocate when I was a teacher that, you got to raise you can't say this is what we have to spend. We're not reaching for the stars. We're staying here. And older people saying, well, I don't want to support education. I've already gone through school. I've had my children. They're going. That isn't community to me. I think that when I'm 100 years old, I still want to be supporting, whatever's going on in the waterfront with my taxes. So anyways, this is brief now. Because what I did when I thought, it just feels discouraging rather than encouraging, I turned to the heart and soul. I said, well, I'm going to look back and what are our statements? What mattered to the people? And the resolve that the town council adopted back in January 25th, 2018, of what mattered to the citizens. And there were a lot of the whereases, but then the final resolve was to approve and adopt the community heart and soul statements listed herein and commit to using them to evaluate decisions in preparation of future policy, strategic plans, and operational and investment decisions. And I think two of the statements in particular would be worth considering before the council supports these proposed amendments. The first is a vibrant downtown. We treasure a vibrant downtown with small businesses, festivals, parades, and art-related opportunities which provide economic development and places for people to gather, promoting a rich, welcoming sense of community. And then the other one is community spirit. We cherish our community that comes together through neighbors helping neighbors, volunteering, and supporting local organizations and events, creating a sense of belonging, which gives each of us an opportunity to make a difference. So I would be interested to hear your thoughts regarding how these statements of what matters to the citizens are related to these proposed changes.
Anyone? Sure. Is there...
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
But I'm just bringing back to that commitment of the council to always look to these. Mm-hmm. This was the commitment, that this will be before us. And I'm wondering, was that before you read and digested? Because those statements came from a lot of interviews that they represent the citizens of Bucksport.
Absolutely. I guess my 2 cents on that is this, that I believe that what's being proposed supports both of the things that you just said, in that there's no, I didn't read any language in there, and if we disagree on it, we disagree on it. I know you won't take it personally. I didn't read anything in there that discourages groups getting together down there, or anything of the sort. What I really see is that it organizes the process for how certain events are going to have to be run, because this probably isn't the best way to state it, but there are competing priorities here. There is the use of the waterfront for all types of gatherings, etc. And then there is also we have a functioning marina that, among things, is generating revenue. At times, there have been examples where those two things have, there's limited space, they compete, for lack of a better word. I think this, if done correctly, will start to eliminate some of that competition and realize that both things have to work together. If there are going to be events on the waterfront, there has to be a recognition that the marina has its place down there, and vice versa. For us to have an attractive marina, an attractive waterfront, it has to be a place where people can get together. I love the fact that we're having this conversation. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. When I grew up in this town, if you told my mother or any of my friends' mothers that we were going to be arguing someday about what we were going to be doing on the waterfront, it wouldn't have happened. I wasn't allowed on the waterfront 35 years ago because it was disgusting. So the fact that we're having this conversation reflects an enormous amount of progress in this town. But at some point, we are now at the place where we have to have a process for how this is going to be managed. And I've got to be honest with you, I do think that the people who put together this ordinance have taken as much of this into consideration, including the town council, as much of that into consideration as possible. So I appreciate what you said, though, Nancy, because it is a good reminder that we do need to keep those things in mind. And I think you brought up two valuable points there. But I would just, I don't feel as if it's discouraging anything. As a matter of fact, if done correctly, it should make both any organizer of events or people attending events, as well as the people that run the marina and use the marina, make all of their lives easier. That's the goal here, I can assure you.
So maybe just a little more detail in it, like around some of those things that Derek raised, that, what does constitute? I mean, needing to bring someone else in, is that, it's hard. It's hard to do that, but perceptions, there are different, it's just that makes it
true
tough. But I appreciate that you are having this conversation. And we just need we need a second waterfront. That's we don't have another community center, like a big green where people could hold events, and I appreciate how we will need to compromise.
Yeah.
Nancy, as I said earlier, I mean, if we can get the train tracks, then that will alleviate some of this.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah, that'll be great.
It's been mentioned several times here, but I think it stresses the fact of Nancy's concerns, Derek's concerns, Mike's concerns. It's gonna be a major communication thing right from the get-go when the permits are filed and approved. It's gonna be so vital, and everything that everyone's bringing up is stressing that fact, and that's, I think, the biggest area we need to look at, is making sure everybody's communicating.
Well, I think, to put it on an education, for me, what it does is it sets the expectations, and so that people know what the expectations are, and it's like with school children. If they know what their expectations are when they're going outside, then they're set, and the people that are watching those kids are set, and they know what the expectations, and they're taught that way. And I think it's the same thing with town council and looking at this, and that this is what we're here for, is to create policy and to look at budgets. And I think that it's important that, I agree with Paul. I do think that we follow those things in this, and I do see, points that you made, but I agree with the things that are in here.
I would say I agree as well. I mean, the committee did a good job of looking at different communities and what they charge, and I don't think we're out of line with that. I just had one minor concern, but if it can be addressed through communication, then I'm good with it.
Oh,
I'm Hans Krischels. I've been a taxpayer in this town for, I think, 52 years now. So I've been around for a while, and I've seen the town go through a lot. And I respect you guys and what you're trying to do. I just want to underscore one thing that's come out here, and I think, Eddie, you just brought it up again. You brought it up earlier, Paul. A number of people have brought it up. Communication. I read this thing this morning. I was just handed it. And it's just, overwhelming. I mean, it's a daunting document. If I were a person in this town, a good-meaning quilter or whatever, wanting to hold an event on the waterfront, I wouldn't even bother, because it's just, the way it's presented, it's a daunting task. I call it user-unfriendly, inhibiting document. If this is the final document, is there a way to present all the rules we're talking about, all the balances of interests that we need to work out? Is there a way to present it? You can hire somebody to do it up or whatever, simplify it, present it to people so it's just not overwhelming to the point where it's going to scare people away altogether.
That's a good suggestion.
I think it would be our responsibility to do that in one fashion or another. I can sit here and make all the points I want about communication, but I don't think that you communicate effectively. You rely on ordinance for policy, but I think if we relied on ordinance to be the basis of all our communication on these things, I think probably find we're in trouble.
Okay, well, thank you. I just came away with, once again, I have to ask, why in the world does our little town need such a lengthy, exhaustive, draconian, and totally unfriendly, inhibiting document? And that is the way it came across to me, and I think it will come across to a lot of people unless it's presented in a much more user-friendly way. That's my say. Thank you.
Thanks.
If I could, just briefly answer part of Fonz's question. Part of this process is also updating all of our applications. And many of our applications currently are very vague, and they don't ask a lot of questions. And so part of our goal in this process is not only updating the applications to ask more specific questions, such as, what is your specific plan for trash? What is your specific plan to help address public safety? But also the goal is to put on the first page, specifically of the festival and public entertainment application, is a checklist of sorts, and a really kind of a Spark Notes version, if we will, of this policy. Because I agree, there's a lot of red underlined letters here, and I acknowledge that, certainly. But on the flip side of that, as the person who kind of is the first point of contact for these people and the person who needs to try to balance the administrative side of this process, if you take away all of these red letters, it doesn't leave me with a whole lot of guidance, and it opens up a lot of questions. And part of the problem that we ran into is that we had a waterfront policy that was saved on, I think, the town manager's server from probably 25 years ago, that had guidelines that was expected of public events and events on the waterfronts that weren't listed in our ordinance. And so, just to reiterate what's already been said, our goal is most certainly not to discourage any sort of event. We're really trying to adopt a policy here that is more clear to us on the administrative side, and to hopefully make it more clear as to what's expected for those applying to hold an event in town. So, thank you.
I think it would be completely reasonable for us to set up a simplified, direct. We need the ordinances, of course, to protect things, but
You mean part of a handout to somebody that's interested in doing a festival?
yeah, something that's brief but to the point so they know what to expect. I think that's a great idea.
And that's what Luke was talking about, that was being developed to go along with this.
Look forward to that. Anything else? Folks, this is a good discussion. Back to the town manager's point a little bit ago. Sometimes it gets messy and uncomfortable, but this was a good discussion. I have a better understanding of certain priorities now, and I hope you have a better understanding perhaps of the councils. And this will be an ongoing process. So it's sticking with me, Derek, so I'm going to pick on you again. You mentioned either you felt you'd embarrassed yourself. Please don't feel that way. You didn't. I'd tell you if you did and you didn't. So thank you.
I only say that because I don't want anyone to feel as though my statements were picking on anybody or labeling anyone as a villain or anything. We're all here to do the same thing. It's just, I wouldn't want Luke's job because reading code is terrible. I can only imagine how terrible writing it is and how difficult that is. That is a job that takes a ton of, ton of time and expertise. And I guess I'm just trying to say that, communication. Let's have that. Let's talk more about this.
You got it. We all good? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing. How would the council like to proceed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for update to Appendix H of the Town Code, which deals with the sign ordinance. Open the public hearing. Questions, comments? Nancy?
See, you're prepared for this one. I don't have a heart and soul thing though with it. I just read it and I just don't even understand it. I don't know, like, is it, like, why do we need this sign? Or, I mean, I get it with the size of things and everything, but then all the definitions, I didn't know what they apply to, what they don't apply to. I'm wondering, like, on the bridge, like, we hold signs. Like, does this have anything to do with that? Or, I just didn't know what.
This is like Hannaford, Dunkin' Donuts, Family Dollar.
Okay, so this is more businesses.
Yeah,
This
these are
isn't,
permanent
okay.
signs.
Oh, permanent signs, this is all.
Yeah, permitted signs. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
permitted, and that's why I didn't know then if every sign that you might hold up needs a permit. Okay,
Yep.
that answers
No,
it then.
I'm pretty sure the sign ordinance says that if it's your own property or that kind of thing, and you've got signs up that are, like political signs, things like that, they're exempt. But yeah, you can't put up a sign advertising your quilting business on your front lawn without a permit.
Okay, so this is just for permitted,
Right.
I mean, yeah, you need a permit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one
Thank
example
you.
from the last conversation, not to drag this on, but to give you an idea of the flavor of it, was sometimes there will be signs down by the bridge for events. And that sign will also have a sponsor. And, for example, this ordinance talks about how big instead of saying a little thing that there's going to be something going on Main Street with a big, gigantic advertisement for the sponsor, it details how it actually
You have to
relates the
have, right,
office.
that's a
Yep.
smaller, so when the
Yep.
church has their baked bean supper,
Yep, if that were to
then
be...
the church name is smaller underneath it as baked bean.
More like commercial, like if it was sponsored by Paul Savings Bank, it isn't a big ad for Paul Savings Bank.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank
Not to
you.
pick on any bank.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Anything else from the council? We'll close the public hearing. How would the council like to proceed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded, all those in favor? Opposed? All right, next item is discussion of items not on the agenda for the council or the public. We'll go with the public first. I saw Paul's hand first, then we'll go with Nancy.
Hi, Paul Rapsey, Spot Sport. Good to see you all tonight. I have a couple things. First off is, I'll call it inflation frustration. In the month of January, these numbers go back and reflect on the month of January, but the cost of living was at about 7.3%. Today's numbers, February's just starting to hit the street now, 7.9% today. Electric rates went up 22%, fuel oil 43%, propane 47%, and in the average Maine household paid an additional $230 in January. Since then, the numbers have gone up like crazy. But it's not only the homeowner, the business, the apartment renter that this is going to impact, but it's also going to be hitting the town, especially the next quarter, because we still need to put fuel in our school buses, our dump trucks, our fire trucks, our ambulances, our police cruisers, we have to pay for the lights, we have to pay for the heating here, as well as other facilities and up at the school and so forth. So where I'm heading with this is, please, when it comes to setting budgets, which we're about to go into, fun time of the year, been there, done it, got the t-shirt, hated it, and then goals and objectives, I ask you please, look at it, things that whether it's an aspirin or a vitamin for the town. Right now, I'm not keen on the idea, an example of a vitamin, putting electric charging stations down at the waterfront. That to me is a vitamin at this point. I think money can go elsewhere. And to be honest, if we want to put the electric charging station down there, I want to know who I can get a coupon from here in the town office to go buy a tank of gas. Okay, as a taxpayer, I just don't. So I'm being a bit of a smart aleck here, but please, you know, aspirins this year, not vitamins. The worst is still yet to come. And not only that, if we color outside of the budget lines, every $400,000 we're going to spend, that's going to be $1 mil increase on our tax rate. So anyway, end of that. Second item I had is I reread some of the information online about the planning board and wanting to make a move on land use when it came to the sale of marijuana. And so I went back on the computer today, and to give you a little background, I think they're doing an end around on the town council, to be quite honest. There was a notice of ordinance adoption that was July 27th of 2017, and 30 days after that adoption, the ordinance took effect. And that had to do with the amending the Appendix K land use ordinance, and the basics of it were to prohibit the retail marijuana establishments and retail marijuana social clubs. That covered 5 different things: retail cultivators, retail processors, manufacturers, retail sales, retail testing labs, and retail social clubs. Now, we instituted back at the time a moratorium. We went through the full public meeting process, and in the end, these regulations were woven into the Bucksport land use codes, and that's what the planning board seems to be trying to adjust. Now, a quick little backgrounder on this. Back in November 8th of 2016, that is when the Maine voters passed by actually what the Bangor Daily News called the narrowest of margins. It was then Maine Question 1, which enacted the Maine Marijuana Legislation Act. To get to the bottom line, during that same period, that election year, the town of Bucksport, the taxpayers in Bucksport, said no to going forward with the idea of selling marijuana here in town. Since then, in May of 2017, Augusta went on and they put a LD 1527 in the hopper, and I believe that's at the time that they established there would be a special tax on marijuana, 20%, with an additional 5.5% sales tax of 25%, 0.5 in total. So the town does not gain any revenue by allowing a retailer to come into town. It isn't like we're going to get 2% off the top of any sales that take place. It all goes up to Augusta and into the general fund and other things that we're looking for. So I don't see any reason at this point to change the rules. They have the planning board change the rule. We have dispensaries across the river. We have it up the road, and you can go to Bangor. We have multiple facilities. I don't see why we need to. It's an ordinance. It's in place. It hasn't come to the council. How in the world are they going to change it?
Paul, we better let Luke speak to this. That isn't the case with the ordinance. The ordinance actually went in the other direction.
The current ordinance allows medical marijuana sales in town. What you passed in 2017, what you said was right. It says retail marijuana. The problem is that at the time, the state defined retail marijuana as recreational or adult use. They called it retail. So our ordinance used that same definition and called marijuana adult use or recreational marijuana, retail marijuana. So anywhere in our ordinance that you see retail marijuana, what they're talking about is adult use and recreational. It's separate. If you look in our ordinance, there's a separate definition for medical. In 2011, they put that in the ordinance, and they put it in as allowed in the downtown district and the C1 district. And so what I asked the council was if, because I think you were on the council in 17, right?
Right.
So what I was asking was, in 2011, they put that in because at that time, towns didn't have the option of opting in or opting out. It was,
Right.
this is allowed, all you can do is regulate where it is.
Right.
In 2017, you guys seemed very clear that you did not want retail marijuana anywhere in town.
Right, and that was because the legislature came along and said, home rule
Right.
would
And
trump
then-
things.
And then in 2018, they passed a law that said that if municipalities had to have the government board opt in order to sell marijuana in that town. And so I thought, Bucksport has never done that and opted in. It's not allowed in our town. And then I got contacted by a lawyer who said, no, your ordinance change that was done in 2011 by default opts you in because you didn't take it out. So I asked the board,
But medical only.
medical
Yeah,
only.
yeah, yeah.
I asked the council, what is your pleasure? Do you want to take this out so that we aren't allowing any marijuana? Do you want to leave it so that medical's still okay and retail's not? Or do you want to open it up to everything? And that's where the discussion came in.
Yeah. Now, I get what you're saying, and I also understand that under the new law, individual homeowners can have multiple plants. I don't know what the magic number is.
Yeah, I
but
don't
yeah,
It's very confusing law.
yeah, it is, yeah. Anyway,
So-
thank you for listening, but you're right, I was part of this, and I saw it, and I
Yeah.
went, oh.
No, I spent a
was a
great
little
deal of time
frustrating,
trying to
so.
figure out why things happened the way they did in 11, why they happened in 17. I contacted Jeff Hammond and tried to talk to him about what happened.
Yeah.
And I still don't really know. I got the feeling from the council at the last meeting that you were open to medical, but maybe with some changes to the way it's worded or the regulations on it.
Well, and I also think we should examine industrial. We have an industrial park. There's jobs to be brought with that industry. And
So-
it's not a moral thing. There's jobs to be had there.
Yeah.
You know, and why would we turn it away? We're business friendly, right? I mean,
That's one thing that while you were speaking is you were saying that the town's not going to get any necessarily revenue off of the taxes from that, but the business owner is. And that's what I was thinking. The person owning the business is the person that's going to be making the money. And that's where I.
and whether it's whether they're industrial or
You know
not.
what, I shouldn't think that's a discussion for another day, but, it caught my eye. I read through the previous document, and I had lived through this other, so I wanted to
Right.
offer an
I just
opinion.
wanted to be clear that the planning board's not trying to do an end around or anything.
Okay.
The council actually referred it to the planning board for discussion, and the planning board is going to do that. They're going to look at the language in the ordinance and make a recommendation to the
And
council.
correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, but with the electric vehicle, we got a grant to put it in, and we're charging.
No, that was just an example. Okay,
Fair.
I'm just, I'm really interested in vitamins from, East Bucksport downtown. As Sue said earlier, we've got 5,000 people who live in town, and some pretty interesting months coming up, so, anyway, thank you.
I will tell you that I'm extremely glad that we bid out all the things that you talk about, so that while diesel and things are at $umpteen a gallon, that we are, not only are we at $2-something a gallon for diesel, but they're committed to that price with us until we buy every gallon of diesel that we've committed to, and we are going to run under, so we're going to be well into the summer before we have to start looking at it. So that and the fact that we changed every building to LED, except Public Works, to LED fixtures. And you were on councils that helped do this. We've really tried to insulate ourselves as much as possible from this, the immediate effects of this stuff.
I just lived through sticker shock with, as you all will, when you get oil or propane delivered. I sat with a fellow that far away from me one night, and he said, "You're lucky you bought it yesterday. It went up 28 cents last night." So, geez Louise. So, anyway, thank you all.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Nancy? Yep.
This is the last item on the agenda, so this will be my last one. Hans and I attended the Neighbors, I think it's Neighbors Knowing Neighbors at Brown Hall. I'm not positive that's the title. On Tuesday, the high school robotics team was there, and it was amazing. I'm just sorry that everybody in town wasn't there to appreciate the presentation. You know, Mike Gross, and I'm sorry I don't know the other partner, the math teacher that works with him on that.
John Boyton.
Yeah, John
Boyton, thank you. He wasn't attending that night, but Mike just sat at the table, and the students, the team took it over in front of a podium with humor and articulate, and to describe this to a group of people that didn't really, have any idea how this works. Each of them had a voice. It was incredible to see the teamwork, to just, somebody might say something and then all the others would be nodding, and it might just be a personality thing of something that they were saying, but it was pure delight. And then we got to see for the first time the robot. They made it work, and it went across the stage, and the challenge this year is that they had to create one that then basketballs have to go, it has to collect the balls from the ground, and then it has to toss it up. And so they were going all over the auditorium. And this weekend is their first competition with it in Waterville. So I think that's real credit to the high school, to the support of the town for those extracurricular activities, and they were amazing. It was wonderful.
You can view that on the town's website by going to the Experience Bucksport tab, and if you go down to Know Your Neighbor, every one of the Brown Hall Know Your Neighbor programs there's a link to their YouTube channel on it, so anyone who wishes to watch those can also watch them from
that's
our
great.
website.
I'd encourage you to. It was wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
I'm done.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. And I know Paul's talking about vitamins and aspirin, but at some point, the most underutilized building in this town, the Bucksport Performing Arts Center, is going to need upgrades. The sound system is analog. We're well beyond analog. The lights, everything in there is original, but was not purchased new. Most of it was used in great condition, but now it's time. So I know we don't need any more heartburn, but for the most underutilized building, if we want that to start having some top-notch performances and keep it in that shape, we need to keep up with the times. And I know it's under the school facility, but I think we need to do our share as well if we want some events to happen, not only on the waterfront, but up there as well. We need to make that a gem. It's a hidden gem. It doesn't even show up on GPS. That's how much of a hidden gem it is. So I just want you guys to think about that as well, please. And thank you.
Rich. Anyone else? Very good. Thank you. Anyone on the council? I want to make sure. Okay. Next is upcoming public hearings, designation of topics for committee assignment, and scheduling of committee meetings. Do we have any meetings that need to be scheduled?
We need a services committee meeting for Rich.
Do we want to do before the next council meeting?
Do it before the next.
6:55 works for me.
6:55 next 2 weeks from
Dan's
tonight?
running that one.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, Dan's running at 6:58.
Well, since these meetings have to be started and stopped, and the next one started and stopped, why don't we do like 6:45,
Yep.
and then that will give them time to get stopped and set up for the next one at And do we have, will anything be, it won't be back from the planning board for the council to talk about at regulatory review by,
There might be an appointment.
Well, that's what the services committee
Oh,
for is for
okay.
that appointment, because there's an economic development committee meeting this coming Monday here at 6 PM. And then we're gonna have, hopefully present a nomination for the one vacant seat from the passing of Frank Dunbar.
Yeah, the yard sale ordinance will be public hearing at the next planning board meeting, but I think
that's in April.
yeah.
So, okay, I just was making sure that we didn't have something else that we were.
Good.
Point of order. Do we need a facilities, I don't even know the name of that department anymore, or are we going to do it at the council?
You mean the childcare?
Yes.
Is that an infrastructure?
Hmm?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, is it infrastructure or not?
Well, it's not infrastructure, it's a discussion.
Discussion item.
Well, it's a discussion of town land and what we'd be doing with it, so I guess that would be as close to infrastructure. It's part of stuff we own. If you're thinking about trading it or giving it away, I would think it would need to be, so maybe we could make infrastructure at 6 and...
6 on this one.
Yep, and services at 6:45.
Very good. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.